The NASDAQ saying they're going to make tokenized stocks a top priority. What is this going to mean for XRP? Could it be used to settle the back end of the stock market? Well, Jay Claver seems to think so. I'm going to lay out a ton of information in this video to give you everything that you need to know to be caught up with what is going on. Let's just jump into it. It's a Sunday. Hope you're having a great weekend. Let's get into it. NASDAQ makes tokenized stocks a top priority. NASDAQ's crypto chief says they're moving as fast as they can to get SEC approval for trading tokenized stocks. This would allow investors to trade tokenized shares of publicly listed companies directly on NASDAQ. Let me share this with you.
NASDAQ has been involved in digital assets since 2021 when you launched the NASDAQ Crypto Index. And since then, NASDAQ has been immersing more and more into this.
All right, this is the head of digital assets at the NASDAQ exchange talking about the future, all right? So this is the person in charge, right?
Space. I want to start off with the very latest because in September, NASDAQ filed an application with the SEC for a proposed rules change to allow for the trading of tokenized stocks and ETP. So what was the main driver behind that move? I mean, obviously, we're hearing a lot of interest in tokenized stocks right now, so I'm sure that was part of it, but what else was in the mix there?
Sure. So the way we look at it is we filed a rule filing with the SEC that really allows our investors and members choice around how to settle and hold those assets and represent them. So either you can represent them in tokenized form now on blockchain, or you can hold them in its traditional form under the traditional accounts. And really what the whole purpose of this is to bridge the digital asset world and the traditional world together, but do it, and some of our responsibility is to really do it with an investor first principles type of mode. So we really looked at this as a way to kind of give investors that level of choice and to drive things forward. I think what's crucial here is that we're not creating a new exotic instrument. The stock is the stock. And that's what's really important, is that we focus to make sure that the investor is first and they have the full rights and title that the shareholder should have as part of owning that share. And what that really means is that when you start to trade that is the same ticker, it's the same CUSIP that's being traded. It's fully fungible between the token and its traditional form. It's just allowing the investor that choice on the back end to be able to hold it as new applications come forward and you have the enhanced utility of that instrument. So really we're thinking about the investor and making sure that they have right and title to the asset, which is contrary to some issuance that have happened. And you want to make sure that there are that same level of investor protections that exist relative to something that may be construed as a slightly of a derivative that doesn't necessarily have the exact right and title to that instrument.
All right, this is a great interview. I will include it down below. I will be going through this and picking some other pieces that I want to show you, but I just wanted to have the chief, the person who's in charge of all this, telling you kind of how this future is going to go. That way you're hearing it directly from the top. It's not just me saying it. It is actually the person in charge at NASDAQ saying it. I just, we need that, right? We need to know for sure that this is happening. This is who is telling us. Once we can confirm that, now we can plan for our future ahead. All right, and so I wanted to better understand tokenized stocks, the timeline, all of that jazz. So let's go through that information. And I got a lot of really good things to show you here on the back half, so don't leave too early on this one. This proposal is mainly about letting investors trade on-chain stock tokens that mirror existing listed shares, while also using blockchain in the back-end process rather than replacing the traditional stock market outright. What this proposal actually does is NASDAQ's filing asks the SEC to let listed equities and ETPs trade in both traditional form and tokenized representations, with both types sharing the same CUSIP and identical rights, whether that's voting, dividends, or other things. Trades would still go through the existing NASDAQ order book under current national market system rules. The tokenized part applies to how positions are recorded and settled, not creating a new separate on-chain exchange. Market participants could choose on a trade-by-trade basis whether their positions to settle in the normal way or the blockchain-based wallet infrastructure. So if you want to use the traditional systems and it takes an extra day or whatever, you can do that. But if you want your money right then and now, you're going to be able to have that option. And they're always going to be able to do this, right? When you're rolling out a new system, it's always, we're going to give you both sides and you're going to be able to choose. But eventually that older choice, that older infrastructure will be X'd out, just like we're getting rid of checks and pennies. Eventually credit cards will go away and it'll all be just an app on your phone, how we kind of use our phones now. And so here's the timeline and likely timeline of the rollout. NASDAQ filed the tokenization rule on September 8th. Public comment with SEC review are underway. Internal commentary suggests that if approved, first tokenized settled trades could occur late Q3 of 2026, though this depends entirely on the SEC's pace and any required infrastructure sign-offs. NASDAQ digital asset chief said they are treating this as a top priority and will move fast. Tokenizing versus market versus backend only. This is not a wholesale tokenize of the stock market in the crypto sense. Bearer assets freely circulating on public chains and held directly by retail without intermediaries. Instead, it's a hybrid model where the same regulated securities can also exist as tokens on permission blockchains, primary to improve settlement efficiency, collateral mobility, and post-trade processing while keeping the existing broker deal and exchange structure intact. They don't want to get rid of the legacy systems, right? These companies that have spent decades becoming these big giant conglomerates. Remember, those ones are really the people who are in control in the back end here, and they don't want to be left out. And so you're going to get this hybrid model. You don't want to rock all boats here, but I do think this is the start of something much larger where all of this value eventually will be traded via the blockchain. Who handles the back end of the stock market? If you don't know, the proposal explicitly relies on the DTC, the Depository Trust Company, part of the DTCC, to handle clearing and settlement of tokenized form of securities. The DTC would convert eligible positions into tokens form delivered to the DTC register wallets on permission blockchain and maintain compatibility with existing NASDAQ and broker systems, with trades initially still setting in T+1 basis. Looking at the current options that the DTCC has for tokenization, I said, well, what are their choices, right? R3 and maybe XRP. DTCC is building a multi-chain network agnostic stack where Quarter, Besu-based app chains and other permission or public chains all play roles. XRP and the XRP ledger are important integrations, but not the main blockchain. The DTCC's primary blockchain stack, the DTCC Live DLT settlement platform for US equities, Project Ion, is built with R3 Quarter and runs in parallel with the legacy system, making Quarter a core production ledger for tokenized stock settlement today. In 2025, the DTCC launched its collateral app chain and infrastructure layer for tokenized collateral built on LF decentralized trust Hyperledger Beso implementation, again emphasizing permission EVM tech rather than a DTCC chain. Is R3 involved here? Yes. DTCC has publicly confirmed that R3 provides the underlying Quarter DLT software for Project Ion, and they partner with R3 to design and operate a platform for equity settlement and potential SCC clearing expansion. Industry commentary notes that R3 was chosen specifically for regulated private network workflows among banks and brokers, which matches DTCC's need for controlled participation, privacy compliance, and post-trade processes. How the DTCC could use XRP, the DTCC's own digital assets and tokenization materials describe an architecture that can connect to multiple public and private chains via app chain and middleware layers, so different assets can be used and can go live on different networks as needed. Analysis of the DTCC's patents and strategy indicates that they explicitly designed for interoperability with major ecosystems such as Ethereum, Hedera, Cosmos, and payment networks like Ripple's XRP, but as optional routes for liquidity settlement. Optional routes for liquidity settlement. All right. And then, of course, I wanted to show you this clip here with Jay Claver basically telling you what R3's plan is.
In XRP, have any competition with settling the funds on the back end of the stock market? If so, do you think XRP wins? No, there is no other option for the back end of the stock market at scale. If you want to talk about competition, I mean, R3 can settle through a few other things. They have partnered with Solana. They have utilized XDC. There's been announcements about that. The primary settlement mechanism for Corda, which I'm Corda certified, if you want to go look it up on LinkedIn, I have my certification posted there, is XRP. So it's the only thing that has clarity And I think it's going to be the only thing that has enough liquidity in it to be able to work at scale for the back end of the stock market when it's needed. So no, I don't think that there's any other option at this time.
All right, it was so funny. We were covering Project Ion years ago on this channel. I remember how exciting it was to talk about R3 and the XRP connections, and just to see this come kind of full circle is really kind of a unique moment for me. And I'm sure if you've been following along these last few years, you kind of knew this day was going to come eventually. And it's just a lot of fun to see all this play out. Now, I did want to get into some little information about the clarity, right? Because we don't yet have the Clarity Act passed here in the US. So most cryptocurrencies don't have the regulation they would need to participate in these new systems. And I said, isn't XRP and Bitcoin the only assets that the DTCC and R3 could use right now? And it says right now the DTCC is limited to only XRP and Bitcoin, and the regulatory picture is a bit more nuanced. So this is supposed to happen in Q3. It could obviously happen sooner depending on the SEC's timeline here. If this should happen, let's say Q1, and we don't yet have regulation, obviously the only thing that they're going to be able to use here is XRP. I do think XRP is probably one of the best choices here, but I wouldn't, push out Ethereum and Hedera. I think they're also going to play a role here as well. But this is getting really exciting. And then what regulations allow today? Because I just really needed to know this extra point. The SEC and CFTC joint staff statement on September 2025 explicitly says the SEC and the CFTC registered exchanges can list and clear certain spot crypto asset products under existing law as long as they meet current rules and surveillance, custody margin, and investor protection. Separately, spot Bitcoin ETPs have full SEC approval, and the Ripple case left it in place, the ruling that XRP sold on public exchanges in itself is not a security, while some institutional sales of securities offerings gives both Bitcoin and XRP relatively clearer paths for institutional use than most other tokens, but it does not make them the only permissible assets. And so we really talked about the DTCC and their strategy already. So let's just keep going. And of course, Mr. Larry Fink has been telling us here over the last maybe 12 months what he believes is the future of the stock market. Let's go ahead and play this clip. This is a good one.
The opportunity for tokenization is probably the most important component of how we are going to see the evolution of the financial plumbing of the world. And the reality is, if we could tokenize all our ETFs, all $5.3 trillion of our ETFs, and provide that in a digital wallet, you could seamlessly, without fees, going from a digital currency or a stable coin or whatever that may be in your digital wallet and buy bond or stocks. And I believe that is going to be the future. The opportunity.
I believe that lady sitting there, I believe, isn't this the CEO of Franklin Templeton? I think that's who that is. I could be wrong there. I also want to show you this. Robinhood just tokenized nearly 500 stocks and ETFs on Arbitrum. So Arbitrum is going to be used here globally. The data represents about 8.5 million in assets and more than 19 million in cumulative mints. The EU users can now trade tokenized equities 24/7 with as little as €1 under the MiFID2 oversight. With this move, Robinhood is no longer just a broker. It's edging toward becoming a tokenized Wall Street. So Robinhood, man, that has been the play. Robinhood also bought Bitstamp, and I'm going to have a little information in just a second. And of course, we saw this. I covered this a few days ago. Breaking tokenized stocks go global. Ondo Finance will begin tokenizing U.S. stocks and ETFs across Europe and the US. This is not a pilot. This is the US markets going fully on chain for international investors. Real world assets is taking over. And then also here, just to give you some additional context, Robinhood Global Stock tokenization is currently running on Arbitrum Ethereum layer 2, not on the XRP ledger. And Bitstamp's main role so far is the execution venue of Robinhood's EU crypto perpetual futures, not for tokenized stocks themselves. Robinhood's tokenized stocks and where they live. Robinhood launched stock tokens in the EU mid-2025, letting European customers trade tokenized versions of 200 US stocks. Now it's 500 with zero commissions. These stocks tokens are issued on Arbitrum 1 and then on the XRP ledger. Robinhood has announced that in the future, these tokenized stocks will move on its own dedicated layer 2 blockchain. So Robinhood's building their own chain, which is being built on the Arbitrum stack. And there's no indication that XRPL is being used. I just wanted to clarify and cover that. I did want to get here. Bitstamp, acquired by Robinhood Markets for $200 million, is now operating as Bitstamp by Robinhood. In Robinhood's first institutional crypto business as a key part of its global expansion for Robinhood's tokenization push, Bitstamp's primary role is the execution venue for crypto perpetuals futures. Robinhood's EU perpetual futures with up to 3x leverage are routed through Bitstamp's exchange infrastructure using Bitstamp as the matching engine and liquidity provider. So still using, the XRP ledger through Bitstamp's infrastructure here as some liquidity provider. Global licenses and institutional access. Bitstamp brings over 50 licenses and registrations, including MiCA in the EU. This is why Robinhood wanted to buy Bitstamp for the licenses, allowing Robinhood to offer crypto and derivatives to institutional and retail clients across the EU, UK, and the US, also to pick up a bunch of more clients. Crypto liquidity and services. Bitstamp provides deep order books, staking, lending, and institutional grade APIs that Robinhood is integrated into its global crypto suite. And then, of course, XRPL's connection to Bitstamp. Bitstamp has publicly signaled that it is building a new crypto derivatives exchange on the XRP ledger. Leveraging XRPL's speed for low-cost cross-border settlements, this derivatives platform is expected to support products and like futures and options, with XRP potentially being used as the native settlement asset. However, this XRP-based derivatives exchange is separate from Robinhood's current tokenized stock offering on Arbitrum. So just want to show you the differences there. And of course, how this all fits together. Robinhood's three-phase tokenization plan is phase one, tokenized stocks on Arbitrum. EU customers get tokenized US stocks and ETFs issued on Arbitrum with 24/5 trading. And Robinhood is the issuer. Phase two, 24/7 trading via Bitstamp infrastructure. Robinhood uses Bitstamp exchange tech and licenses to enable 24/7 trading of stocks tokens, mirroring the crypto market hours. And then phase three is permissionless DeFi ready tokens. The goal is to make stock tokens withdrawable and usable as collateral in DeFi like Aave, turning them into truly open permissionless assets. And so we did get a clip here. This is from a Robinhood event, basically talking about what we're discussing here. Let me just play a little bit of this for you so you get an understanding here.
But what we've realized while driving usage with millions of customers to Robinhood Crypto is that real adoption isn't going to happen from forcing people to understand how the blockchain works, and especially not from having them farm rewards on every new crypto app. It's going to happen not just by making the technology better, but by making the interface so easy and intuitive to use that the technical part is almost invisible. The same reason why hundreds of millions of people started using ChatGPT so quickly. And so that's what we've done with stock tokens. We've made it easy, intuitive, and fast while keeping the complicated technology under the hood. So to show you how this works, I'm going to walk you through what buying a stock looks like on the traditional brokerage compared to buying stock tokens. Here, on the left side of the screen, you'll see the US app where you can buy equities the traditional way. On the right, the EU app with stock tokens. So starting from this page, let's say we're interested in Apple. We're going to enter in the amount I want to buy, about 100 euros of Apple, hit review, swipe up, and your trade is complete.
That's so cool.
And that is it. So what's amazing is
you see here it says, it doesn't say token, but here it says token. That's how you're going to identify which one is which. All right. Just wanted to point that out in case you missed that on the screen.
You're having a consistent experience across both apps, but the technology making this possible is completely different. In fact, if we weren't telling you that this was a token that you were buying with this token badge right here, you'd have no idea this was a blockchain transaction. But actually, if you do tap on this badge, that's where you'll learn all about trading stock tokens in the Robinhood app. And I'm going to quickly cover the highlights.
Really quickly, do you know when a certain technology has made it like globally, right? When people don't even realizing they're using the underlying technology. That is when mass adoption happens, when you don't even realize it, but the technology is doing whatever it needs to behind the scenes. Oh yeah.
First, as some of you may have been wondering, you won't be missing out on dividends by holding stock tokens. You'll get those payments, along with any stock splits that might happen, directly into the account where you're holding your tokens. You'll also have access to ETFs. Through stock tokens, you can gain exposure to the most popular US ETFs like VOO, SPY, and more. And finally, we're bringing the same zero commission trading that our users in the US love to the EU. So there will be no commissions, no hidden fees, and no added spreads on stock tokens from Robinhood. One thing I should note is that there is a 0.10% FX conversion fee when your euros are automatically converted to dollars during the trade. And that's one of the lowest rates available anywhere.
All right, guys, I will leave it there. Now you have a clear picture of what's to come with tokenized stocks here in the United States and what could possibly be the most important settlement asset as we know right now in the crypto market. Of course, it is XRP. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, guys. If you got any value out of the video, you can like the video, you can leave a comment below, you can share with a friend or family member. I just really appreciate your time as always. I hope you have a great week ahead. Aloha.